Hello everyone, welcome back to the best place for the best takes. I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show. We are not in the middle of regular season football, but it kind of feels like it, doesn't it? Some big time football oriented news dropped on Sunday. It felt like we were in the middle of a Sunday night football game. The cornerstone of all of those big headlines being Jalen Ramsey to the Miami Dolphins. I can't believe it. I am talking about my hometown Miami Dolphins as a potential player in free agency and as a potential playoff hopeful in 2023. Very exciting time to be a South Florida football fan. Now, I'm going to get to the big stories like the Bears trading the first overall pick and Aaron Rodgers to the Jets is what it seems like. Of course, I'm going to get to those stories later, but let me start with this Jalen Ramsey acquisition because I believe it makes the Miami Dolphins a top 5 defense in 2023. So I will be the first to tell you, I thought Jalen Ramsey was regressing in his play. With that being said, I thought for sure when these headlines surrounding the Rams trading Jalen Ramsey, which have been around for months, when those started to pop up, I thought for sure the Rams were going to get a first-round pick in exchange for Jalen Ramsey. So the fact that the asking price for Jalen Ramsey, one of the best top 10 corners in the game right now, I still believe, the fact that his asking price was a third-round pick and a backup tight end is shocking to me. And that's what this deal was. The Miami Dolphins gave up a third-round pick and a tight end who is not a starter in order to get a top 10 corner in the game. Now, I know he's getting older. I know there's some big contract incentives that need to be met. I know that some of his contract is fully guaranteed. I know it's a big cap hit. But nonetheless, the Dolphins are clearly proving right now, hey, we're not paying a big-time quarterback. We have cap space. We know how to manage the cap because they restructured over $40 million worth of cap space just last week. So we know they're going to be able to deal with this for now. And there's not going to be a cap hell situation like what the Saints are in right now. At least not right now. Maybe the Dolphins will have to pay for these mistakes or these acquisitions later on. But right now, they are in the green. They're in the clear. So the Dolphins' current defense is now made up of corner Jalen Ramsey, corner Xavier Howard, edge Jalen Phillips, pass rusher Bradley Chubb, defensive line Christian Wilkins, and safety Javon Holland. And those guys are being coached by one of the best defensive minds in the NFL in Vic Fangio. That is a recipe for success for the Dolphins. Defensively, the Dolphins are going to be one of the top 5 defenses in 2023. You can book that right now. And it's interesting, I'll get into this story as we get closer to next season, but it's interesting that there are now 2 defenses in the top 5 in the AFC East. What does that mean for the Bills? That's a conversation for another day. But the point being, the Dolphins are in a really good spot. Now, I'm also going to talk about this because it's a rumor, but I'm going to act like it's true. There have been, just last week, free agent safety Jordan Poyer liked a tweet of himself in a Dolphins uniform. And a Dolphins fan saying, let me see what the tweet was, official tomorrow morning, ? And it was a photoshopped picture of Jordan Poyer in a Miami Dolphins uniform. And this is not really a secret, if we're being honest here. If you've been following this story, we know that Jordan Poyer has been very public about his love for South Florida. He has a home down here. He spends his off seasons down here with his family. He has talked about wanting to play in a state with no income tax. Florida, Miami Dolphins, it's very clear. It's been clear for months. He is going to be a Dolphin. And so it's not official at the time that I record this. Maybe it will be at some point in the next couple days, but I'm going to act like this is a certainty. Jordan Poyer is also on the Miami Dolphins, and he is an addition to those big-time players that I named on the Dolphins defense. So let's break down Vic Fangio's defensive philosophy. So like we said, he is one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. What does he like to run? What kind of schemes is he most comfortable with? Vic Fangio has made his bread and butter over the years with 2 particular coverages. Number 1 being cover 4, and number 2 being too high safety shell. So let me break down the safety shell first one. It's a core concept of Vic Fangio's defenses over the years. It's one that he frequently uses. So what exactly is it? Essentially, it's 2 high safeties before the snap, and then you rotate them into a different look after the snap. This makes perfect sense. Safety Javon Holland is already on the roster. Jordan Poyer will be on the roster in the next couple months. That makes sense, right? 2 elite talents. They can make it work. The Dolphins can be really good in that coverage. Also, Vic Fangio likes cover 4, also known as quarters. What is that? That is essentially, cover 4 is 4 defenders. They split up, and you usually have 2 defensive backs and two two defensive backs, or four defensive backs, two of them being corners, two of them being safeties. And they drop back into coverage, right? But then you also have 3 to 4 defensive linemen that drop into the shallow zones, what I like to call the underneath stuff. That I believe elite quarterbacks, they make their bread and butter there. Tom Brady did it for years. I think he's a great example of occupying and using the shallow zone to his advantage. A lot of halfback underneath runs, a lot of stuff with your slot receivers. That's where a lot of that short yardage game creates its bread and butter and is successful. So that defense could be run easily by Vic Fangio using Jalen Ramsey, and then you also have Xavier Howard. So those are your two corners, and then you have Javon Holland at safety, and your other safety is Jordan Poyer. This makes perfect sense. I mean, what a great time to be Vic Fangio, right? Can we think about this for a second? He is now a defensive coordinator in South Florida, is apparently the highest paid defensive coordinator in the league now, and has all of this elite talent, and not just elite talent, but elite talent in the positions which he loves to utilize and use in his coverages. This is great. Another interesting component of the too high safety that Vic Fangio likes to run. Denver finished first in the NFL using too high safety in Fangio's last season with the Broncos in 2021. That's really important. Furthermore, for reference, Miami finished 32nd, dead last in the league in 2021 and 2022 using too high shell safety. I mean, the writing's on the wall here. The Miami Dolphins are going to have a very different philosophy on defense. It's going to be a very different look, but it's going to be exponentially more successful than anything we've seen in recent history involving the Dolphins. The Dolphins have an excellent defense. Like I said, it's going to be top 5 in the NFL in this coming season. The question the Dolphins now have, which I will address more and more as the season goes on, is offense. And not just offense, in particular, Tua Tagovailoa, their quarterback, who I've been very vocal about, who I have thought, is not the guy, is not one of the better quarterbacks in the league, and in an AFC division that is loaded with Josh Allen, with Patrick Mahomes, with Justin Herbert, with so much great talent that is very top-heavy in the AFC, it's hard for me in a quarterback-driven league to say, yeah, Tua's going to go head-to-head in the postseason in December with a Josh Allen, or with a Patrick Mahomes, or with a Justin Herbert, or with a Trevor Lawrence who is on the rise. These are the kind of things that make me uncomfortable when it comes to the Dolphins and how we project them to look this coming season. Like I said, I'm not a hometown guy. I'm very cut and dry when it comes to this. I think the defense is going to be great, but I'm not going to be irrational here and hype up the team overall because I know the limitations that Tua gives them. He hasn't, beyond the injury concerns and the availability concerns, he's going into his third year. Who else is going into their third year? Well, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Justin Fields is also going into his third year. I've seen things from those guys in year 1 and year 2 that show me they're different. It's a playmaking ability. They've shown flashes of greatness. Now, Tua has been very effective. He's been very accurate. But to say that he's shown this very remarkable or special ability that separates him from everyone else, I don't think so. I think at his best, he's an elite distributor, but he hasn't shown me anything that jumps off the screen when it comes to his actual playmaking ability. That's a question of mine, in addition to the injuries, in addition to the availability. So that's where I take a look at the Dolphins and I say, you're great, but you can't be one of the greatest teams in the NFL. You can't be a Kansas City. You can't be a Chargers team that is loaded, who last year was very injury-riddled as well, but still found a way to sneak into the postseason in a loaded division. I mean, the NFL is going to look different this year. Tom Brady's no longer weighing down the NFC. You've got some excellent talent in the AFC. You have now Denver has Sean Payton as their head coach. It's going to be very tough to find success for some of these teams, in particular the Dolphins, I think, in the postseason. Now, I'm already predicting off the top of my head, I think the Dolphins will be excellent in the regular season. I think they'll make a big-time splash because Tua and Mike McDaniel have been so efficient when they're on the field together, and Tua is healthy. Their defense is going to be great, especially under Vic Fangio, top 5 in the league. But once again, when it comes to the postseason, that's where I get hesitant. But regardless of that, I think Jalen Ramsey to the Miami Dolphins is an excellent move, and I think Dolphins fans who are defensive fans, who are old school football fans, should be very excited about the upcoming season. It looks like the Aaron Rodgers offseason saga is going to come to a conclusion. NFL fans will know the ending of what this movie has been with Aaron Rodgers. The Jets rumors are heating up. Some reports are saying the Jets have already agreed to compensation with the Green Bay Packers, in addition to the Packers already having given the Jets permission to speak to Aaron, which came last week, of course. This situation looks like it's progressing in the direction that we thought it would. Aaron Rodgers is not going to go back to the Green Bay Packers, and he's not going to retire. He is going to be a New York Jet. And although the decision and the announcement has not come yet at the time of filming this, I am sure that is what I'm leaning towards right now. Aaron Rodgers is going to play in New York in 2023. So I was thinking about this, and honestly, I was not going to even address this story until it was official next week. But I thought to myself, as I was getting ready for today's show, you know what? I've been very critical of Aaron Rodgers over the course of this show. A lot of people, when these takes get clipped and posted on social media, people chalk it up to in the comment section, oh, this guy's an Aaron Rodgers hater. No, I have just been very honest in what I'm seeing, and I've consistently been right, by the way, in my Aaron Rodgers takes. I think he is very prickly. I think he doesn't get along with young teammates, and I think his inability to commit to his team, especially in the offseason, has continuously hurt the Packers as he gets older and as he loses weapons. So I talked about a couple weeks ago how Aaron Rodgers to the Jets is a horrible fit and they would not find success because the team is so young. The Jets are a very young team on both offense and defense. And from what we've seen in recent years, especially this past offseason, Aaron Rodgers doesn't take well to young players. This is not a rumor or something that's being made up. Aaron Rodgers said, and he expressed his frustration last offseason with his young wide receivers. He was very frustrated with them. They weren't making the plays, or they weren't reading him as well as previous veterans like Devontae Adams had. There were growing pains. They were young rookies. Aaron was going to have to mentor them. He was going to have to spend a little bit more time with them than normal. And clearly, Aaron Rodgers was very uncomfortable in that mentorship role. He didn't take well to it. He criticized his teammates publicly. Apparently, he didn't even hang out with a lot of them. And then he's tried to kind of reverse that opinion. Oh, no, I have a good relationship with the guys, and I really enjoy playing with them, and I've built so many friendships over the years. I heard him talking about this on that podcast after his darkness retreat, and I couldn't help but think to myself, this is the same guy who his teammate Romeo Doubs said he didn't see Aaron Rodgers outside the facility not a single time this year. Not one time did they meet up outside of the practice field or outside of game day. Not once. Not for a beer. Not to sit down as a group at a restaurant. Nothing. Not even a team dinner. And Aaron Rodgers is talking about how he loves the relationships that he's built in football. It's very disingenuous, at least I think, for looking from the outside in. But there is a way, believe it or not, all of this being said, I realized there's a way for Aaron Rodgers to succeed in New York with the Jets. There are 3 free agent wide receivers out there right now that are on the market. Let me rephrase that. They're not free agents. Some of them are on other teams, but we know that these teams are on the mark. That these players are on the market. We know about DeAndre Hopkins. We know about Adam Thielen, and we know about Odell Beckham Jr. So one of those guys is a free agent, or 2 of those guys are a free agent, Odell and Adam Thielen, and then one of them is currently on a team, but it's being shopped, and we've known about this for months in DeAndre Hopkins. So these 3 individuals are very, very talented, special wide receivers, and in my opinion, for Aaron Rodgers to succeed with the Jets and with that young offense and that young defense, he needs at least one veteran wide receiver, an older guy, and he needs one of these 3 playmakers who are available right now. Let me start with DeAndre Hopkins. Now, we've seen limited action from him over the past 2 seasons because of injuries and suspensions, but let's go back to his last full season, 2020. DeAndre Hopkins in 2020 had 115 catches, 1,407 receiving yards, and 6 touchdowns in 16 games. That is very impressive. That's not even counting how well he did once he got back from his suspension just this past season. So he's had availability issues, some injury concerns, some off-the-field stuff that has kept him away from the team. But DeAndre Hopkins is still that guy. He is the contested catch master. He's one of the best in the NFL at that. Aaron Rodgers, an incredibly accurate quarterback. He doesn't like motion is what we've been told, or some of the rumors, and we see it in the playing style. We see it in the schemes when he's been with Green Bay. He's not one of these very modern offense-motivated guys like an Andy Reid with the Kansas City Chiefs, that there's a ton of motion. It's a very fresh, new, modern-looking offense. Aaron Rodgers is never like that. That's why Davante Adams was so great with Aaron. Aaron wanted stagnant offenses, kind of like Peyton Manning did. There's nothing wrong with that, but that means that your receivers have to be great in man-to-man coverage, and they have to be able to outwork or outmaneuver or outrun in terms of speed the corner or the defensive back or whoever is guarding them at that moment in time. That's why Davante Adams was great, because he's one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in the league, and he could get away with that when his quarterback was Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers could get away with that when his wide receiver was Davante Adams. So he is going to need a contested catch guy. I think DeAndre Hopkins is an excellent fit for Aaron Rodgers in New York. And from what we've heard in a lot of reports, apparently, according to Ian Rappaport, there is a lot of speculation that Aaron Rodgers could be a market mover. He could command, hey, I'm going to the Jets, and that could in turn spur up a lot of guys saying, hey, we want to play with Aaron Rodgers. Do I necessarily believe that's true? I don't, but I'm not an insider. I'm not Ian Rappaport. I assume what he's telling us is correct. I just don't see it. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is that kind of marquee personality that guys are screaming and bailing on their teams to say, I want to play with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that's the case. So DeAndre Hopkins would be a good fit. Odell Beckham Jr., I know he's not clearly what he used to be. I know that there have been a lot of rumors about how bad and how severe his injuries have been. That's why he didn't end up playing this season. There was no chance he was going to be able to play this season. All of these rumors came out later and later in the year as he started negotiating with different teams. But I think Odell can still be a very valuable asset in the receiving game to the right fit. We know that they have a little bit of a relationship, Aaron Rodgers and Odell Beckham Jr. They've each talked about it, especially this past season when Aaron Rodgers actually mentioned, Odell and I have talked about playing with each other at some point. Maybe that comes true. Maybe this is the perfect fit for Aaron. Aaron's going to have young receivers that are very talented in New York City with the Jets, but we know that he needs a veteran guy. And he needs a veteran guy with upside. It can't be a veteran like Randall Cobb, who is consistently unavailable and no longer has nearly the ability that a guy like Aaron Rodgers would want or need to be successful. Rarely, this is interesting, rarely do we talk about veteran players as having or needing to have upside. We talk about young guys needing to have upside, but, veterans need to have it in certain circumstances as well. And I think Odell Beckham Jr. is that perfect guy, and so is DeAndre Hopkins, as guys who are older, but they have a really healthy amount of upside to them if they are healthy, if they fit in their system. So Odell Beckham Jr., let me just look at the stats from the postseason run with the Rams. In that postseason run, Odell had 21 catches, 288 yards, and 2 touchdowns in just 4 playoff games. He is still Odell Beckham Jr., and maybe he's not what he used to be. This seems to be a consistent theme on today's show. They're not what they used to be, these guys, but they are still very formidable, and they're great talents that could be useful to any team. So Odell, I think, is another great fit for Aaron. Lastly, Adam Thielen. Now, he's not nearly as... He doesn't have the same star power that these other 2 guys that I mentioned have, like DeAndre Hopkins, like Odell Beckham Jr. He doesn't have those highlights or those major plays that have made his career, but he has been an all-reliable, I think, is what I'd like to call him, for the Vikings. He's been great over the years. And in 2022, he played a full season, so he's probably the healthiest out of all these guys. Adam Thielen in 2022 played 17 games and had 70 catches for 716 yards and 6 touchdowns in 17 games. So 6 touchdowns, just like DeAndre Hopkins had in his last full season. That's an interesting comparison there. But, a lot of people may not like this because they believe Adam Thielen doesn't have nearly the amount of upside that these other guys have, which I understand with and I agree. With. But Adam Thielen is he's a scrappy guy. He can get it done for you. He's on the field. He's got a great attitude, and he might be that perfect veteran presence in the wide receiver core that Aaron Rodgers can say, hey, this makes sense. I'm comfortable with this, because Aaron Rodgers is not going to be comfortable unless the New York Jets sign one of these 3 wide receivers. He needs a veteran presence in that receiving core. And I believe all 3 of these could be an excellent fit for him and the Jets. And I believe the Jets could definitely find success if they get just one of these 3 guys. If they don't, and it's just the Jets roster that has a very young offense, a very young defense, and the only major change they make is Aaron Rodgers at the quarterback position, they'll be good. They may even win their division, but they're not going to make an extended postseason run, and it's not going to look smooth. It's going to be clunky, and there's going to be some fireworks because Aaron Rodgers has never been the type to shy away from confrontation or from addressing something that's uncomfortable. And Aaron Rodgers playing with young wide receivers, it's going to be uncomfortable. The Chicago Bears are a very old school football team. I mean, in everything they do, they lean into defense. They've never quite leaned into offense. They've never gotten with the program with the modern NFL and what it takes to win. They're not with the curve like other teams are. And they clearly don't understand PR or marketing because this trade for the number 1 overall pick, the announcement was made at 5 o'clock on a Friday. No time for any of the main talk shows or podcasts to be able to talk about the big news because they were already off the air, and it was on a Friday, meaning they couldn't even talk about it the next day. We are talking about one of the biggest trades this offseason and potentially in the last couple years in this Hall trade that was made on Friday, and we're talking about it on Monday, days later. We're just now getting to this big news. So the Bears clearly, they were looking to offload the first overall pick. We knew that was going to happen, even though it may have been in their best interest to draft another quarterback, and I was one of the people who floated that idea out there to you guys. I thought maybe you go with a quarterback in this draft, but they weren't going to. They're a very conservative, very comfortable franchise. Drafting another quarterback in the first round when you have Justin Fields on your bench or on your roster, that's not comfortable. That's uncomfortable, and that is very unconventional, especially by the old school football standards. So a lot of people, the talk this morning is, oh, the Bears absolutely won that trade. Yeah, that's obvious. Everyone's going to say that. I think anyone who watches football knows the Bears absolutely won that trade. What people are not talking about nearly enough on today's show is the impact that trade will have on the Bears. We know they're probably still going to be in the running for a Will Anderson with the 9th overall pick, or with a Jalen Carter is probably who they're leaning to if Will Anderson is gone by the time he gets to 9, or their pick is 9. But I do think the impact of this trade will be felt for a long time in Chicago because, not of the picks, but because of the player. I mean, this is an excellent trade for the Chicago Bears. DJ Moore is now on their roster. Someone they would plan on targeting during free agency, but hey, if you can get him in a trade and make sure nobody else outbids your offer to get him, hey, just lock and load it for next season. So DJ Moore is now a Bear. And I talked to some people about this over the weekend, and they were laughing. DJ Moore is already the best wide receiver the Chicago Bears have had in the last 30 years. I mean, they are not an offensive talent-driven franchise with a lot of memorable names on the offensive side of the ball, especially not at the wide receiver position. But he is. He is the most talented and the best wide receiver they have had in over 3 decades. So what does DJ Moore do for a guy like Justin Fields? Well, I've talked about it on this show before. It looks like the Bears are getting with the program, and these are good signs for Chicago and for Bears fans as a whole. Your franchise is leaning into offense, and they are getting with the times. Let me explain. As I've said on this show, we have had previous circumstances that have shown you quarterback year 3, that's the year. So let me take 2 examples of two guys who succeeded in year 3. We have Josh Allen and we have Jalen Hurts. Just in recent years, both in their first year were very clunky. There was a lot of growing pains, and it was not pretty. Year 2, they cleaned some things up. They both looked better. And in year 3, their front offices traded for a star wide receiver, a wide receiver 1, and that blasted their career and took them to new heights. Josh Allen became the Josh Allen we know him as today because of that year 3 acquisition of Stephon Diggs. It saved his career. Year 3, Jalen Hurts, he got A.J. Brown this year, and they absolutely lit up the box score. They were an amazing duo to watch. There was talks about, until the very end, of Jalen Hurts being an MVP because of the acquisition of A.J. Brown. And even A.J. Brown, early on in the season, there was talks of him being Offensive Player of the Year. So those have both resulted in excellent duos that are still together and that really made the quarterback into who they are, and it helped them grow in that big year 3 jump. So because of those circumstances, and not just two of them, we know as modern NFL football fans, hey, year 3 is a big year for quarterbacks. Well, guess what? Justin Fields is going into his 3rd year, and he now, in addition to Chase Claypool, has a true wide receiver 1 talent in DJ Moore. Can we expect a big year 3 jump? I don't know. Justin Fields' passer rating in his first year was a 73.2. Last year, it was an 85.2. What will it be this next year? Will it be in the 90s? Will it be in the hundreds? We can assume that that is going to be the case because now Justin Fields has a wide receiver 1, and there is precedent for a wide receiver 1 being the key to unlocking your quarterback and all of his potential. We know Justin Fields can do amazing things with his legs. We know he is hyper athletic. We know he is one of the best. I'd say he has some of the best legs in the NFL at the quarterback position, can escape pressure, has done well. And although the storyline this past year was he doesn't have an offensive line, which is untrue. The Chicago Bears have the 14th best offensive line in the league. Not amazing, but not nearly as bad as people were making it out to be. Justin Fields was a little bit on the hot seat. He is going to have to show that he can be a true QB1 in the NFL. And I think this move shows the Chicago Bears are leaning into offense. They understand what needs to take place for Justin Fields to feel comfortable and grow and do better and become their true franchise quarterback. This is going to be a good fit. If precedent shows us anything, it's that Justin Fields is going to have a big jump in year 3, and I'm very excited for it. I mean, another person to take note of who is going into year three is Trevor Lawrence. And Calvin Ridley has now been reinstated. He's going to make a big year 3 jump too. And Trevor already looked great this past season. And as I've talked about on the show, was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL from week 12 on. So year 3 is going to be a big year for some of these guys. And it's going to be a fun watch. This shows that Chicago is trying to build around Justin Fields. They are doing all of the correct things to make sure that they are supporting their quarterback in 2023. So this John Morant story is one that has taken over the NBA world. And even though we're in the middle of a playoff push in the regular season with so many interesting stories, this John Morant topic has kind of overshadowed everything. And it's put a cloud on what should be one of the most exciting times in the NBA. And I discussed this last week on the show. John Morant is clearly hanging out with the wrong group of people. And he is taking advice, and he is doing things that are being advised by other people who should not be in a position to advise him. He should be listening to coaches, to mentors, not to people who are putting him in bad positions or in a position to not succeed. And this is tough because sports at its core, the reason why I love sports, why I did, especially as a young fan, why so many other young fans love sports is because it's so exciting and because we lean into superstars of our generation. Other young players who are making a splash, who are doing it different, who have their own wave, who are doing it their way. And John Morant is one of the biggest talents in the NBA, undeniably so, one of the biggest superstars in the NBA, is a top 10 watch in the NBA, is a talent, and that's evident. You know, the league has pushed him as being one of the biggest superstars in the league. Marketing is everything, and it's no secret that John Morant is one of the future superstars of tomorrow, especially with the way the NBA has framed this from a marketing perspective. And so over the weekend, in addition to everything we've heard about John Morant, over the weekend, a photograph was released of a club that he was previously at. And it seems, it has not been confirmed, but because of an investigation into his firearm in a club on an Instagram Live just a couple weeks ago, the investigation has now forced authorities to look back at old footage. And a picture came out that has now been circulating the internet of John Morant with another lady, and it was not the most flattering picture to be going around, especially as a superstar athlete. You wouldn't want your parents to see that. You wouldn't want your fans to see that. Your family, your friends. It should not be seen as a cool thing. And I think the part that is has everyone just shocked is the outrageous amount of money that was scattered across that room, on the couches, on the table, on the floor, and you can assume those aren't $1 bills. I mean, that is a massive amount of money that is being outrageously spent in the wrong place. And you feel for these athletes because you know that as young people, they're in an interesting position that not many other people are ever in, and it may be tough to navigate. But by the same token, Ja Morant should be spending his time, his effort, his energy, and his resources on the court, on getting himself better, on making sure that his team is in a good position to succeed in this NBA postseason. It shouldn't be money being spent at clubs or on the road, and this is unfortunate because we know the culture that is the NBA and is going on the road and clubbing after games that was made famous by players of a previous generation, and the culture has kind of stayed there. Unfortunately, it's been one of the only long-lasting things in the NBA. Not playing styles, not bigs, not dominant centers. It's the clubbing culture on the road. And it's something that it's so dirty, and it's one of the more ugly parts of the NBA. And it's certainly something that you don't want. I'm older, I'm an adult technically, but you don't want kids hearing about this stuff or hearing on an NBA broadcast, your favorite player's not playing tonight, and then the kid in 2023 saying, oh, why is he not playing? In case, that young child or that young fan didn't know. All it takes is an iPad and a quick Google search, and the headlines surrounding Ja Morant right now are some of the worst that I've ever seen surrounding a player. And I'm sure if he thought about it like that, he definitely would not want young fans who look up to him, who see him as an inspiration and as a motivator and as a hero, to see him in those positions. So very ugly that this is coming out. I assume, unfortunately, it is not the last picture or the last bit of evidence that comes out that is against Ja Morant. I think there's a lot more stuff on the way. A potential 50-game suspension has been floated around as an idea by league officials because apparently a firearm on a team flight or on a team bus on the road would result in him having that 50-game suspension. This is a very ugly situation surrounding Ja Morant. And I just want to say, not only as a sports broadcaster, as a journalist, but as a fan and as someone who is young, who does look up to these players as well in the position that I'm in, that I can speak about this, I think Ja Morant really needs to reconsider everything that he has done. And he can't take it back. Whatever photographs are out there, whatever alleged allegations are out there about him and physical confrontations with other people and other kids and on the pickup basketball court, all those things that are out there, he can't take them back. But he can make sure to change his ways, to not surround himself with the crew that he has surrounded himself with, and to make sure that it never happens again. Because, like I said, Ja Morant may be in a situation here where he is finding himself on the outside looking in. And that is a very scary position for an athlete who just last season signed a $200 million extension with the Memphis Grizzlies. He's one of the biggest superstars in the NBA, and he's gone down a bad path. Hopefully, he can turn it around. With that said, this is the conclusion of the Benjamin Cure Show. Thank you so much for watching. Like I've always said, if you want to watch the show back, feel free to do so. Feel free to leave a comment or like. I respond to comments. I know you guys are a little bit shy to comment on YouTube, it seems. Make sure to share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. I will reply. If you want to get into a little bit of a debate, I'm sure we could do that as well. If you want to see some of the shorter clips, those are also awesome. You can go on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram. Same handle, @BenCureShow. And we really get into it in those comment sections. It is a lot of fun. Until next week, I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show.